Welcome, everyone. Just before we begin tonight, because there is many people that have not joined us in the gallery before, I just want to share that though this is a public meeting, it is not a conversation open to members in the gallery and council or staff. If you want to speak before council, you can request a delegate through our clerk and she will be happy to walk you through that. So with that, welcome to the regular council meeting of Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 at 4:40 in council chambers and via Zoom. We acknowledge that the town of Kirkland Lake is located on the traditional territory of Algonquin peoples, including Beaver House First Nation and unceded territory of other Indigenous peoples. We recognize the presence of the Algonquin, Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and Cree and Métis people in our community since time immemorial and honor their stewardship and care of these lands. We hereby affirm our continued commitment and responsibility to reconciliation. Call to order and a moment of silence. Thank you. Item number 2, approval of the agenda. May I have a mover? Councillor Shava, seconded by Councillor Ranger.
Moved by Councillor Chaba, seconded by Councillor Dan Ranger, be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024 be approved as circulated. And finally, that section 33 of procedural bylaw 1575 as amended be lifted for matters noted under section 4 petitions and delegations only to relax the rules on discussion between members of the public and to also allow administration to openly participate in the discussion where required.
Thank you. All in favor? Point of order.
Information. So up until a few days ago on the TKL website, it always said that delegations were limited to 1 item per delegation. And in all my years following council or being on council, we've never had delegations where it's so wide ranging and on so many topics. So since the rules were relaxed for this individual to be able to come to council, our rules going to be relaxed so we can ask questions if we feel the need to per item that he will be presenting to us tonight.
Thank you for that question. I will defer to the clerk as authority on the procedure.
Through Madam Mayor, to all of council and to Councillor Owens' point, the rules, the information that was set on the town's website was not what was contained in the procedural bylaw. There is no restrictions in the procedural bylaw surrounding the items presented at council. Given that council wishes to follow its procedural bylaw as written, the rules are now going to be lax in order to allow for more than 1 item to be presented, given their in absentia in the actual procedural bylaw.
We can ask as many questions as we want.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This is what this recommendation is for.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item number 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. There are none. Item number 4, petitions and delegations. We're going to welcome Helene Stedholm, President of Kirkland Lake Arts Council, and the town's cultural strategy is what she'll be speaking on. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor has kindly introduced me, I am President of the Kirkland Lake Arts Council, Helene Stedholm. I've been a volunteer with the Arts Council for 20 years. We have a volunteer board of 11 hardworking people, some of whom are here today, and some of whom have their red shirt on, so you can identify them. But just to let you know, I'm going to be reading some of the points because I'm not aware that we've ever been here in front of council in the past, and so I really don't want to forget anything that I want to tell you. So I hope you don't mind. As you explore your cultural strategy, we're here to remind you that the Kirkland Lake Arts Council has been in existence in Kirkland Lake since 1948. And it's one of the few remaining volunteer arts council organizations in the province. We work hard to stay in existence. Because of our location, it's not always easy to bring artists north. Did you know that we collaborate with arts presenting organizations throughout the province? Places like the Grand Theatre in Kingston, the Schenkman Theatre in Orleans, the Rose Theatre in Brampton, and the Capitol Centre in North Bay to bring amazing entertainment to our community. In fact, one of our shows in this upcoming season has been picked up by Mirvish. It'll be in KL in November of 2024 and in Toronto in May of 2025. And so that's actually 6 guitars, because you'll see it in the little brochure that I distributed there. And Sons of Serendip, one of the runner-ups in America's Got Talent, performed in Kirkland Lake in one of our past series, and it was their first show in Canada ever. And it was, well, gosh, our group still talks about it. It was amazing. We bring people into KL from the surrounding areas, patrons from Iroquois Falls, Matheson, Englehart, Virginia Town, Charlton. In fact, I was at a Sudbury hospital with my mom a few years back, and a nurse there told me that she often takes the trip to KL and coincides it with some of our shows, which I thought was amazing. We spend a lot of money in our community too. Hotel rooms, hospitality, production, and the list goes on, and they're not cheap. So we do spend a lot of money in their community as well. Prices are kept at an unheard of low price of $25 per show with the purchase of a series ticket. We continue to offer these shows at ultra low prices because we don't want to leave anyone behind. It's not a reflection of quality. You're never going to find these shows at $25 per show, I can guarantee you that. Even if we sell our series out, we could not meet all of our costs without our fantastic community sponsors. What a deal for our community people who want to attend our shows. We are so fortunate to have at our disposal a rented facility at Northern College, which offers amazing acoustics. When the winners of Britain's Got Talent, Calabro, were here during one of our seasons, they asked the sound fellow to turn off the sound system, and they sang unplugged to show us how amazing this asset is. Performers are always surprised to discover that our northern town has an auditorium of this quality. And so kudos to Northern College. I know Janice, but we're so fortunate to have that in our community. So we try to use it. We like to think that we improve the quality of life in Kirkland Lake. We feel that this is an important attribute to a community of our size, and hope that when your economic development team talks about the assets of our town, that they include the fact that KL has a volunteer arts presenting organization that presents 8 wonderful shows per year. We would appreciate the link to our website on the Town of Kirkland Lake site, or I don't see that we're currently listed in community or in things to do. And so I think it would be really appreciated if you did. Like almost every organization in existence, we've been negatively affected by COVID, and we're trying to build up to our pre-COVID sold out audiences. It's almost unheard of actually that we have sold out for, I think it was 3 seasons that we sold out a 500-seater auditorium. There are many of our colleagues in the South who don't get anywhere near that. So we have been lucky in the past, and we're trying to get back to that. If you haven't yet attended an Arts Council show, we'd like to know what you're waiting for. We would like to see you in our crowd, and we would appreciate you keeping us in mind when decisions are made for your cultural strategy. We'd love to hear you talking about us to your contacts and friends. And our first show is this Saturday, and it is Jim Witter Presents The Piano Man, which featuring the music of Elton John and Billy Joel. It should be a fantastic show. If you need any tickets, my email's on that brochure that I gave you. I'd be happy to personally deliver them to you. Our ticket outlet in Kirkland Lake, the Jewel Box, also always has our tickets. So I would like to thank you very much for your time and attention, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Owen.
Yes, through you, your worship, I'd just like to thank you and your organization. I know my wife buys a ticket or season pass, whatever you call it in the cultural world, every year and thoroughly enjoys it. And I have been to the occasional show, and they are top-notch shows. And we're very lucky to have such a group of organized people to bring us to Kirkland Lake, because it is top-notch entertainment. Thank you.
Councillor Owens.
I too echo the same sentiment. It's an awesome opportunity for Burton Lake to have a group like you guys. You do give back to the community, in forms of bursaries for local students that are moving on to post-secondary education. I think that's a great, great asset that you guys, present to the community. And in conversations with one of your members that tried to get me to buy a season pass, I prefer hockey. A hockey game to the arts, but I have bought tickets, I have gone to some shows, I bought tickets for my mom, for Patsy Cline. Growing up, my mom would sing Patsy Cline all the time in the house, and when I saw that the person that was coming to sing was singing her songs, I figured it'd be a great opportunity for her to come and see them, and so yeah, it's a great thing for her to happen.
We really do try to bring, it's not always easy to bring, but we want to try and expose our kids. It just seems that there's hardly any arts in the classes anymore. And I know that for one of our shows, it's Dueling Pianos, is that right? Piano Heist. Piano Heist, sorry, thank you. Piano Heist, that's coming up, we are going to fill the auditorium with school kids in the afternoon in addition to the evening, because it was one of those opportunities that we had that we could do it. And so we do try whenever possible, but we do give both bursaries to both high schools, and we do our very best to make sure that the culture and arts are present. And just so you know, some of the people in our audience that come out and they say, you know what? I heard this, I don't know how many times. You know what? I didn't think I'd like this. I bought the series ticket and I thought, oh, I've got this anyways, I might as well come. And you know what they say? They say, you know what? I loved it. It was great. It wasn't something I thought I'd like, but I loved it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to promote the arts and trying to, with a series ticket that's so inexpensive, we're trying to get people to come and enjoy. And it's a fabulous date night. So.
Councillor Dykens?
Yeah, I want to thank the Arts Council as well. I find that it shows a bright light in the darkness of winter at Burton Lake, and I think it's a wonderful thing for people to look forward to. And like you said, the quality is unexpected, I guess, would be one, but now it's expected. So I appreciate that personally. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Okay, Councillor Shabbat?
Thank you, Grant. Thank you very much. To you, your worship. This is very good, and I know you guys have been around for a long time. I see your brochure that you have the big guys, big companies here. So I will suggest a couple of things. One of them would be maybe to reach out to mid-sized businesses that might buy tickets and maybe give them away to people that may be able to go, because I mean, we do that in our other office in another town. We just said, do you want to sponsor people, and then we buy the tickets and we give them, we give them out. That might be another way of trying to increase.
We do have a sponsorship drive, and it's interesting, our sponsors change every year. One of our $1,000 plus sponsors this year is actually Moose Haven Lodge in Charlton, which is a small lodge, and they come to every show, they love it, and now they've become a Catalyst sponsor in $1,000 plus category, which is incredible. And I know that Mr. Shabba, you've also sponsored, you're sponsoring, but they'd like you to come to the show as well. And I've got people here too, our wonderful sponsors, Claire and Terry. We've got lots of people who come to our shows, but come and enjoy it.
Sure. My other question to you is that what kind of relationship do you have with the Chamber of Commerce? Because they should be,
Well,
you guys should have partnership in promoting the arts and culture too, especially new people that are coming into town and new businesses that are coming to town too, because as you know yourself, we've got a lot of new faces in town, new businesses in town. They may not be aware of things that their family could do or spouse could do and all of that after work.
well, actually, we don't, I can't say that we have a personal relationship, but they get our sponsorship letter every year so that they're aware of what's going on in the coming season. So they are on our mailing list, they are on our sponsorship list, so we make sure that they get a note every year, a letter every year, so that they're aware of what's there.
Anything further from members of council? I just so want to thank you for coming. All too often we hear, you know, those negative voices saying there's nothing to do in KL, and we know that's not true. There are volunteers throughout our community, and the Arts Council is just absolutely brilliant, the work that you do and the dedication to the arts. We're known as a hockey town, but that's not true. You know, there's so much more to offer, and I thank you for your time. And you're right, we don't sing our praises loud enough. But definitely with the onboarding of Mr. Dan Labrador, our Director of Development and Enterprise Services, I know we're going to raise our voices louder for volunteer groups such as yourself. So he's just across the aisle, and I'm sure he'll give you a card. So I do appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much again for your time.
Thank you. We're gonna do it all together.
At the end.
Yeah, okay. Item number 4.2, we'll call upon Mr. Chris Bisson, who is going to give an opinion piece on water, college, transit, fire department, and museum. I'll get you to come to the podium, sir. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, your worship, council. So I have a lot of items here, and I don't think that I will get through them all today. So you'll more than likely see me back here in future meetings to complete my list. My family came here in 1966. I've owned properties, multiple properties here in Kirkland Lake since 1987. So I'm just a taxpayer. That's all I'm here, a taxpayer. So the main catalyst that brought me here was council's discussion about water meters. And really, really disappointed to see this rear its head again at this council, and that council spending money studying water meters, whether they should be used, new builds, old builds, whatever. Because, see, I've been here a long time. Back in the, I believe it was the 1980s, council spent probably 2 years debating this. An engineering study was commissioned. That is, I'm sure, mostly still valid today, because the town hasn't moved. So I would say that the engineering study is still probably mostly correct. The issue that we're treating water, too much water, for the number of households we have, is not new yet. It's not new to this council. It's been going on for a long time. It was going on in the 80s. In the 80s, they thought, well, it was because everybody had bleeders. And the engineering study said, maybe because everybody's has bleeders. Well, this council, not being councilors, it's councils, decided to invest heavily in a device called an Aquaflow freeze prevention system and subsidize that for any qualified homeowners in this community. Over $1 million, if I remember correctly. You know, that was, the Aquaflow had a tank, the water would flow in, the pump would pump it back into the system. We had to get rid of those now because threat of terrorism, I guess somebody figured that a terrorist organization or something could fill it full of poison and pump it into the system. So they're out. When they took the one out of my house, one of my buildings, I said, well, what do? They were in a bleeder. So, you know, I just like to talk about the bleeders a little bit because why do we need them? There are hundreds of households in this community where the valves, like the homes are built on rock, they're built on solid rock. So when they were built in the 30s and 40s, 50s, they ran the supply lines into the homes 4 feet deep, 3 feet deep. Well, the frost goes down here on any given winter at least 6 feet. So that's why we need bleeders. So that is a main engineering sticking point why You know, meters are a bad idea here in Kirkland Lake, because we need the bleachers. You know, I just give you an example, and this is true, and I'm not gonna give the, here in open council, the address, but it was just up the street from my building on Government Road in Chappie. I'd be happy to give it to the clerk in private, if you wanna check my story, but, so my neighbor's water froze in January. Works department came out, determined what the problem was the valve. Now, they couldn't change this valve in January. But the taxpayer needed water. What did they do? They went to the neighbor and they tapped into the neighbor's supply and ran a rubber hose across the shared driveway into the taxpayer with the frozen line. And he had to run his bathtub full blast all winter. That valve was like, you'd have to check with the works department exactly, but give or take a few inches, 4 feet below the surface of the road, the asphalt. So, you know, I'm really disappointed that the council didn't just tell staff, go dust off that engineering report, bring there what they said here, we'll look it over, and then we'll decide if we're gonna spend thousands of dollars on a consultant to study what we've already studied. And that was the catalyst that really brought me here. And, you know, I heard talk that maybe we should just put meters in new builds. Well, you wanna attract people here, you know? So I built a house, and my neighbor has kids. He's got a little splash pad going for his kids all day long, and he's got water his grass, and then here I am, I just spent $500,000 to build a brand new house in Kirkland Lake. But I gotta watch how much water I use, because I'm on a meter. I don't think it's an issue, I don't think it's a solution. So I would really think that, whatever, and whoever you've got to study this, you know, I'm sure probably if I was a consultant and this council hired me to do that, I would have just went to town and went to the works department and said, well, where is this study? Is there ever been studied before? So, you know, I'm disappointed that you're throwing good money, away, because it's already been studied to death. So that's, you know, just to say meters are a bad idea for this town because of the way it's built. It's built on that. And the homes are old. Not all the homes, most of them are. So that's what brought me here today, your worship. And I'm not gonna take up a lot of time, like I say, going through my whole list. I'll be back. I've got a whole bunch of stuff, but I noticed on the agenda that there's a delegation to speak about the museum. And I just wanted to really quick just say, I'm not gonna comment whether council's decision was right or wrong. But I was disappointed again because of the way it was done. It really blindsided the members of this community. You know, we're closing it in 2 months. Well, you know, run it yourself if you wanna run it. Well, I think it would be pretty hard to start from scratch and get a viable organization going to run a museum in 2 months over the summer. Like, I mean, it just seems to me that if anybody did it, if the delegation has accomplished that, kudos to them, because really, I just really think that a little more public consultation, and if the council was determined to close it, it's your right to do that. You're managing the money, but you know, you could have a little more faith in the townspeople and say, hey, you know, this is something we have, we can't afford it anymore. Give us notice, right? Like, I mean, then there's a lot of talented people in this community, and like you really blindsided, I think, a lot of people. So I was disappointed in that. No, I'm not gonna take up any more time. I still have 3 items on my agenda, and I'll be back. So, you know, I don't wanna run out of time, well. So,
Please, while you have the floor, continue. While you have the floor, you can go ahead.
okay, well, while I have the floor, then in that case, I'll talk about college. So the college is just a shell of its former self. So from what I understand, we just lost our welding intakes. That was a world-class welding program. Gone. A few years ago, they were doing intakes for a Bachelor of Science nursing program. Gone. Used to have all kinds of engineering programs, civil engineering, mechanical engineering. Gone. A few years ago, before the pandemic came, Mayor Kiley, I met Mayor Kiley in his office. And I spent probably an hour discussing how I thought, in my own opinion, that the management of Northern College was looked at the Kirkland Lake campus, and it was death by 1,000 cuts. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. And I told them, I said, no, Mayor, I said at the time, I said, well, man, this council, this community should do every single thing possible to support Northern College. And what happened was, I guess, a couple of years ago, I don't know all the details of why council made the decision they did. But I do know that Northern College came to the council and formally requested that the town provide some parking enforcement for their parking lot. And they were turned down. And I just think the message that upper management at Northern College was probably just, that's what they wanted to hear. Because now they can say to themselves and everybody else, well, you know, Kirkland Lake doesn't really support our college. No, they wouldn't even help us with some parking enforcement. A couple hours a week. Sure, we could have found a couple hours a week to go around and look and see if anybody's got proper validation in there, you know, and the result was, now we've lost a world-class welding program, one of the best in the country. You know, I know welders who came through there, and you know, they're very, very successful tradespeople, and it was always really well regarded that if you were a graduate of Northern College welding program, you were a class act. So, you know, it ties in a lot of things, like, I'm sure the college looked at transit and said, hey, we can't even get our students to school. How are we gonna get students there? They gotta walk 40 below, walk from Main Street, walk. I have units for rent in Chappie Hughes, fully furnished. You right down to the forks and spoons, cups, saucers. I went to college, I said, well, you know, I can kind of offer some affordable rent, everything's there. First thing the college said to me was, you're not gonna get any students because no transit. You can't get to the college. So it's a snowball effect. You know, and when we look at transit, there's probably not too many transit systems in all of North America that make money. Not too many public transit systems make money. They're for a service for community. And I spoke with this council, this is not the first time I've appeared at council. And I spoke when the council, the members at the time were debating canceling the old Federal Premier Roadrunner service, and I spoke against canceling it. It got canceled, you know, it seems to be way on the back burner of this council. And this time of climate change, and we talk about greenhouse gases and everything, well, you know, encouraging people to use public transit, every other town or city in the country is trying. They're not making money, but it's not to make money, you know, we got a $20 million pool that a lot of times kids can't use because their parents are trying to make a living. You know, my granddaughter out to Chapel Hughes, 11, 12 years old, she can't walk complex. So, I haven't really been watching the time, so.
Oh, you're well past time.
Well,
But I do
some people go on and on and on, like I say, I don't wanna take more time than we've allotted and.
No, please stay. I do, before I open the table to the rest of council, I do want to sincerely thank you for coming before council on public record to make these statements and ask the questions. It takes some gumption to stand before us and speak your mind. I completely agree that members of council should answer for the decisions they make. And I can say that I make the decisions based on facts and not feelings for the good of the entire community, not only as it exists today, but also for the future that I envision, for the community that raised me. Many times over the last 6 years, those decisions have not been easy, nor have they been popular, but I was given the responsibility to make those decisions knowing I would have the best intentions for the good of Kirkland Lake at heart. That being said, it is somewhat difficult for me to listen to opinions based on one cherry-picked decision from 2 years ago, which completely ignores the ongoing partnership between members at this table and the college, as well as disregards the request in question, would pile on more duties to a single staff member that had already been doing the job that was previously shared by 4 special constables. This council has unanimously supported the motions both in May of last year and in February of this year I brought forward at the behest of both the former president of Northern College and the current president of Northern College to assist them with their federal and provincial dealings. I have met quarterly with the former president and reported as such at this very table during reports of council. And she herself has spoken to us after that one single decision. As you are today. I feel you brought your opinion today without seeing the entire picture, which is your prerogative. However, reaching out to any council member or staff before appearing publicly could have provided you with that information and documentation in clear contrast of your stance that we do not support the college. I would happily go over this or anything on your list with you and provide you the written documentation and the links to YouTube where these discussion items had occurred. So you may fully understand what information was provided to the whole of council and the public, including the nearly dozen meetings in public regarding the termination of the lease with the Ontario Heritage Trust before you stood here today. Those talks were ongoing for 4 years. Council meetings, however, are not meant for a single conversation back and forth between 2 people. If you or any member of the public want to take us to task, I absolutely welcome it. I will always sit down with anyone, and my door in my office is always open. Always. I am here Tuesday through Thursday, all day, Friday afternoon. You can walk in. If I'm not in a meeting, I will meet with anyone. The fellow members at this table are also equally as open. We are your community members. We are people that sat in the galley just like you and wanted our questions answered. So feel free, and our staff are equally as open. It will help you better understand the role of council and the difference between operations and policy. That being said, I'll open the table. Councillor Owens.
Keep this one short. I'm gonna quote former Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne, when she went to her first debate with Doug Ford when he was then leader of the PC before he became Premier. She started by saying, "Sorry, I'm not sorry." Well, guess what? I'm not sorry. Every single decision I've done at this table, the ones you've mentioned tonight or the ones in the emails that were sent to the municipality, are based on reports given to us by staff. I've read the reports, I've listened to staff when they come and speak to us. And I stand by every single decision we've made, and I stand behind the staff of the town of Kirkland Lake. I took this job 6 years ago with the best intent for my community. Yes, there's historical aspects I'm not familiar with. A lot of this stuff happened before I was even born. I can't help that. I was born in 1980. I can't control what happened before that, but I can control what happens from the time I was elected to council to the time I leave council. in 2 years. And after that, I don't have power over anything, but I stand behind our staff and I stand behind the decisions we've made.
Counselor Owen?
Yes, through you, your worship, I'd like to address some of the specifics that were mentioned here, and I thank you for coming forward. I wanna first off say that my son, Brian, was the former water department foreman, so I know a little bit about water. I don't claim to be an expert. But what I do know is the aquaflow system was very efficient. We had one at our church and it looked after the problem very nicely. And then Walkerton came along. And after Walkerton, the government came up with a lot of new regulations that we had to follow. And unfortunately, with the aquaflow system, anybody could open it up and put whatever they wanted into the water system. So they were outlawed. They had to be taken out. That was not something that was foreseen by the council of the day when they approved the aquaflow program. It's something that came up later. When you talk about leaders, there are many people in this town who could fix their freezing water line problems. And I'm talking about internal water lines. I had a water line in my own house that used to freeze. All I did was move it an inch off the wall, put a little bit of insulation, and guess what? I didn't need to run my tap anymore. And there are many, many situations in town like that that would be very simply corrected. And as for water meters, I grew up with water meters. I didn't grow up in Kirkland Lake. Right now, my mother-in-law lives in a house with 3 bedrooms. She's a widow who lives alone. And she pays the same in water bills based on the number of rooms as if she had 10 people living in the house. You can't tell me the system we are using now is fair to everyone. Water billing in most communities is based on usage. Now, I think council made the right decision by asking staff to look into putting water meters in new builds. Why would you build a new house now knowing that you're putting in a water line that's gonna freeze? You said you spent $500,000 on a new house. I certainly, if I spent $500,000 on a new house, would want to make sure that I had water 12 months a year. And that I would make sure that the line was deep enough that it wouldn't freeze, or there are other ways of keeping the line from freezing. And they're used quite often in the rural areas with people's wells or people who draw lakes. We certainly didn't lose the welding program because we didn't agree to enforce parking restrictions. We do not have any say in what Northern College decides it is going to do. They can decide to do whatever they want based on what they believe is best for Northern College. However, I can say that the mayor and council, since I have been on it, and prior to that, when I was a reporter, I often saw it, have taken every step possible to support Northern College and to keep this campus active and alive. But at the end of the day, it's their board that decides what goes where and what students are gonna be wherever they're gonna be. Now, people want us to keep the taxes down, but then they want us to add services. Sit in my chair for a few minutes. Think about it. I hear about high taxes, and then I hear we want to add services. How can I do that? Services that we know are going to be an added burden. Sorry, I forgot.
No,
Okay.
yeah,
Services that we know are gonna be an added burden to the taxpayer. I can't do both. So I have to make decisions, council has to make decisions, and we make decisions based on what we believe is best for the town of Kirkland Lake and the residents of Kirkland Lake. Are we always right? I doubt it. I'd like to think we are. But we do our best, and I can honestly say there's not one member of this council that has made any decisions based on personal gain or personal profit. This council and the previous council that I was on made decisions based on what was the council members believed was right for the town. We didn't always agree. We've had some lively discussions, but at the end of the day, we've made decisions based on what we believe is right. What I can say is you obviously have strong opinions, so I would encourage you to run for council next time. You know, if you have a direct say that way if you get elected. And believe me, it can be fun. And it can be interesting. And it can be annoying. But, and it can be frustrating. Let me tell you that. Frustrating is my favorite word on council. I used to write a newspaper column where I often commented on decisions of council. Now I understand why those decisions were made the way they were. And it wasn't always the way I thought. Thank you for coming and presenting.
just because, just for a second, just because we got kind of into technical waters there for a minute, I'm just gonna call upon our Director of Public Works, Stefan Forte, just to come and clear up, because I myself wasn't around for the Aquaflow situation, the Walkerton situation, so he's just gonna come up and just provide a brief, but thorough, of course, as always, description of that.
For you, Madam Mayor, to all council, just a point of clarification that the Aquaflow systems are not an outlaw system. There was some concerns in the past before my time here, and a decision was made within the Waterworks Department and the Public Works Department to have them removed because of this concern. But in the past few years, we've been researching the best way to tackle these freezing linings. These Aquaflow units are still very much the best way to do so. And they are still being sold and are actively in use in the north. It's to find an appropriate way to inspect them yearly to prevent tampering. We can't prevent it 100%, but there are ways of inspecting the units and determining whether or not somebody tried to tamper with them. And then at which point we could enforce a new bylaw maybe at some point. This was in research for the past few years. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Ranger?
Through you, your worship. First, nice to meet you. This is the first time I'm seeing you. I would like to thank you for having the, the gumption to come and speak in a public forum. It takes a lot. I think for that, I want us as council to recognize that he is probably the voice of many that are silently thinking the same thing. I hope that by you coming forward and the press and the public being here, that there's some more knowledge sharing that's going on as far as what people may perceive our decisions are being based on and what is actually available through the YouTube and through minutes that are posted on the websites, the information that is brought to us at council level to make decisions. I can say only for myself that this is my first term. It is a learning curve. It takes a long time for things to move through the system. And nothing at this council is done in haste. It's based on information, facts, and sometimes returning reports from directors because it's not enough information for us to make those decisions. But again, I want to thank you because it allows me to reflect on what is the community not understanding or not hearing when it comes to how our decisions are being made. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Shabbat?
To you, Your worship, thank you very much, Chris, for coming here. Full disclosure. I've known Chris for 30 something years or so. Kids that grew up together. And I'm well aware of Aquaflow when it was there, when it was taken out, the reason that was taken out, which I'm kind of baffled, still baffled up to today, because if anybody's gonna tamper with it or terrorists or something, I'm sure they have better things to do elsewhere than to come to Kirk Lake, definitely with that. But anyways, Chris, I just want to touch upon two items out of what you just brought up. One is wider consultation with the public, especially when big issues are coming up that would impact a lot of people. Well, we saw that with the museum, and I've heard a lot of people approach me on the street that, you know, that was something that people are not really well educated on or maybe consulted. You know, it's very difficult because we were elected to act for the people. So do we have to go back to the people on every topic before we make a decision? I don't think so, but the items that are so important that we really need have to go back to the people and say, listen, this is coming up. So I think that's one that, in my opinion, that will really merit further investigation by the staff as to how do we really engage the public, especially when things that will impact it, that they will understand. You know, if you're blasting a rock on Taylor Avenue, I'm sure you're gonna tell people on Taylor Street that we're blasting the rock in your house, so they're aware of that for whatever it may mean to them or not. So I think for me, that is something that I'm gonna try to work on, sitting here to make sure that some of those any future issues that we have, we try to engage the public as best as we can, and hopefully the public will engage us in return. Because sometimes you have a public meeting and people, they don't show up. So what do you do? So it's just a matter of, we do it for the sake of just doing it. I think we have to make sure that we do it for the sake of getting meaningful response from the public, input from the public. So the other one, it is very important to me. You spoke very well about that, is the transit, lack thereof. And I've met a lot of international students, you know, and many of them coming from warmer climates, and all of a sudden they come to our community, winter comes, you know, culture shock for one thing, and all of a sudden they have no way to get to school. You know, I think it is a concern of mine sitting here, and then we discussed it at this table. And I'm glad that you brought it up, and something that we have to look at. You know, I don't know any of our operations that are actually making money, but that's the way the system is set up. But you're quite right. We can't expect it running a transit system to make a whole lot of money. You know, it's a service that we provide, that we should be providing, especially for not only new people coming to our community, but senior citizens too, that do not have means of going to do their regular chores. So that's another item that I think merits investigation. Maybe we'll keep at it to make sure that you know, we have the best and the solution to that. And I thank you very much for bringing that up. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Nothing noted. Thank you, sir, for coming today. We do appreciate your time. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Don't expect to see me on the ballot anytime soon.
Thank you, sir. Item number 4.3, the Oaks Project, Heritage Arts and Tourism, better known as Top Hat, update, and Black President, Beverly McChesney Rumble, Vice President, Martha McSherry, Treasurer, and Kim Shonsby, Secretary. Welcome, ladies.
I guess we'll stay this down here. All right, so we're happy to be able to come today with some positive news that I hope you're going to be as excited about as we are. We've heard from press that there are a lot of people who are quite upset to hear that the museum was gonna be closed, it did blindside a lot of them, although there was a report back done in, 2020. A lot of people don't see those things. Your general public members don't see those things. They just hear the museum's gonna be closed and they're upset because they think it's a valuable part of the community. So we came today to give you an update. We came at the invitation of our mayor, Stacey White, so I'm addressing this to our mayor, Stacey, to bring our top hat directors to the council meeting today, to update the town council about our progress to date on our project to acquire funding, to take over operating costs, to run the Museum of Northern History in its present location at the Saint-Hyacinthe Chateau. So we're very pleased to be able to update you about this following information. Since we last spoke to the delegation, in a delegation to the town at the beginning of the summer, we created and registered a not-for-profit corporation. And this is called the Oaks Project Heritage, Arts and Tourism. Our founding directors are Anne Black, who's our president, me, Beverly Winchester Rumble, vice president, Martha McSherry, our treasurer, who's not with us this evening, Kim Shawnsby. Oh, Tom, look, that's correct. Get up here. I was looking for you, didn't see it. Come on, Martha. So our founding directors are Anne, me, Martha McSherry, Kim Shawnsby, who's our secretary. Agnico Eagle and Alamos Gold Mines are both allotted seats on our board of directors. So they've chosen to be on our board of directors for this corporation as well. We have held meetings with representatives from Alamos Gold Incorporated, namely Luke Guimau, Chief Operating Officer, and Rebecca Thompson, Vice President of Public Affairs for Alamos Gold Inc., and Adria Maye, the Corporate Director of Communications and Government Relations at Agnico Eagle Mines. Adria and Rebecca have prepared documents to provide proof to the town of Kirkland Lake and to the Ontario Heritage Trust, whom we've also had meetings with, that they are promising funding to cover the operating costs for Top Hat to operate the museum in its present location at the Saint-Hyacinthe Chateau. The initial amount that they have agreed upon is $100,000 from Alamos, $100,000 from Agnico Eagle, and $50,000 from one of the royalty companies, which is Triple Flag. Okay, and we just had a meeting with them the other day, and they confirmed that. They're also working on one of the other royalty companies to acquire another corporate sponsor as well. They will do this for each of the next 3 years, and then we'll renegotiate after that. Of course, they want to see how do these people do this, are they doing fine? Then we'll talk about continuing on. So 3 of the Ontario Heritage Trust executive members came to the museum to meet with Top Hat. We've had a meeting online with them on a Zoom meeting before that, and then in person at the museum. So the chairman, John Ecker, director Wayne Kelly, and Helen Chimmery Russell, chief executive officer, came and met with us at the museum. We had very positive discussions, and they are very happy that Top Hat has been able to set up operating cost funding for the next 3 years with Alamos, Agnico Eagle, and their royalty companies. Ontario Heritage Trust asked Top Hat for a letter of intent, which we provided. Proof of funding will be available to them from Rebecca and Adria at Alamos and Agnico Eagle. Have you received? I think you've received those already. Yes, okay. Our next meeting with Agnico Eagle and Alamos will have taken place, just took place September the 13th, Friday, September the 13th. They are providing letters to approve funding for operating costs to Mayor Stacey White and our CAO, Alan Smith. I think they just sent it to Stacey, but copies were to go to you too. And Municipal Clerk Jennifer Montroy. You've likely already received these, you have. So our conclusions are, Top Hat has the support of the Ontario Heritage Trust to assume the lease for the Saint-Hyacinthe Chateau, as long as we've acquired our funding for operating costs, which we have. Ontario Heritage Trust feels, as we do, that the town and the Chateau benefit by keeping the museum in the Chateau. If the town would like to assure the success of this project, which will not cost the taxpayers money, we need your cooperation on a number of issues. 1, cooperate with the Ontario Heritage Trust and facilitate the transfer of the lease that we voted to get out of to Top Hat. 2, keep the 10,000 and more artifacts that make up the museum in the Saint-Hyacinthe Chateau to help to keep our heritage building a living, breathing space full of activity. 3, leave equipment and furniture in the museum that was bought for it there to help with the process of operating the facility. 4, find ways that the town can help and benefit from the museum that won't cost the taxpayers much money. For example, include us in advertising for community events. Keep the snowplow going through and include us in grass cutting, if you can do that. 5, let us keep a high community profile this fall and Christmas to keep the continuity going. Let our volunteers set up and run the craft fair, the museum auxiliary Christmas lunch, the children's Halloween activity, the Christmas singing concerts, and some art workshops, etc. Let your staff take some time off from accessioning, which is recording any documents or artifacts that haven't been recorded yet, to assist in preserving the vitality of the museum. You no longer have to be worried about turning over 10,000 artifacts to donors, bonus. You no longer have to shut down one of the finest museums, art galleries, and heritage sites in the north, and you get to save the taxpayers' money, bonus again. Your 2.5 employees who were going to lose their jobs get to keep them and remain taxpayers in Kirkland Lake, triple bonus. So cheers from me and our Top Hat organization for a not-for-profit corporation that we've set up. I have a letter here from Triple Flag, just as an example. I won't read out all of them, but this one comes from Triple Flag Precious Metals Corp. It's addressed to Her Worship Stacy White, Mayor of Kirkland Lake. And she says, "Dear Madam Mayor, Triple Flag Precious Metals is a precious metals focused Canadian-based streaming and royalty company with active mining partners around the world, including some of our largest assets located in Canada, Australia, and Peru. Our diverse portfolio consists of 236 assets throughout the world, out of which 32 of them are producing. These assets include Alamos Gold's Young-Davidson Gold Mine, located near the town of Matachewan, approximately 60 kilometers west of Kirkland Lake, employing more than 750 people. Alamos Gold's Young-Davidson remains as one of Triple Flag's top producing assets, having set a royalty agreement at a rate of 1.5% NSR. As you will be aware, Young-Davidson is centrally located between Timmins, Kirkland Lake, North Bay, and Sudbury, Ontario, a region well known for servicing the global mining industry. The preservation of Northern history and the extensive collection of mining-related artifacts housed within your museum are of immense cultural and educational significance. We admire and support the invaluable work being done by the Kirkland Lake Museum of Northern History, rich in mining history. We believe historic public buildings can serve to inform and educate generations of the importance of meaningful cultural treasures. Located at the historic Sir Heriot Chateau, the Kirkland Lake Museum of Northern History carries the legacy of a legendary prospector and houses thousands of mining-related artifacts. After 57 years of operation, it is not surprising that a dedicated community effort went into saving the museum from closing its doors this year. Triple Flag intends to help keep those doors open, as it is our honor to offer you our support for the NGO, the Oaks Project, not-for-profit corporation, the Oaks Project, Heritage, Arts and Tourism, Top Hat, who have successfully completed incorporation and will assume responsibility for the lease and management of the operation by December 31st, 2024. Well, she's assuming that, but that's up to you folks, whether we get to do that or not. Understanding the financial challenges that often accompany the maintenance and expansion of such important institutions, we are pleased to join other mining and streaming partners who are also agreeing to join us in this financial support to keep the museum's doors open. Our support comprises of a financial contribution of $50,000 per annum for 3 years to cover operational expenses. We believe that by supporting Top Hat, we are not only preserving our past, but also inspiring future generations to appreciate and learn from our rich history. We appreciate the tireless efforts and commitment to preserving our heritage. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Please let me know if you have any questions. And this is Katie Board, Vice President, Talent and ESG, Triple Flag Precious Metals. And Stacey's also received letters from Alamos that dedicated $100,000 a year for the next 3 years, and from Magnifico Eagle, which also dedicated $100,000 for the next 3 years. So you're guaranteed right at this point $250,000 each year for the next 3 years. And they're working on another royalty company to get a final $50,000 to make it $300,000 a year. So, and did you want to add anything to what I just said here, please?
There's a question?
Oh, yeah, you have questions.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything before we begin?
The current situation.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
update.
Absolutely. So I do want to congratulate you on your hard work, ladies. You have seen an issue or a problem, and you have basically solved it. Incredible hard work and dedication went into it. And I personally wish you all the success with Ontario Heritage Trust. I just caution that it is not up to the town of Kirkland Lake. This is now out of our hands. We have, the role that we played was to terminate the lease, to state that we wanted to terminate the lease. Moving forward, it is all you and OHT. And I really want to throw my support behind you. I think clearly you ladies can do it. Clearly. So honestly and truly, excellent work. I'll open the table. Any questions or comments from members of, oh, Anne, do you wanna?
I just want to clarify, does this mean that you're going to leave the collection at the chateau?
So I am not, I cannot make a decision at this juncture. That's the thing. So it is not something that we will discuss or decide this evening. Because of course, you know, there is legalities and there's a whole lot of stuff that will go into it. So that's not something that we can decide this evening. But we can certainly move forward in investigating if that is the will of council and a motion is brought forward. It's still gonna have to go through stuff.
And just to clarify Deb's words, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I don't think it's exactly that you are allowing us to take over the lease, but more generally, the idea that you're supporting, which you are, I completely agree with. And that is what OHT likes to see as well. I think that's what we're trying to say, so.
absolutely. Sounds good. Members of council, Councillor Owen?
Yes, through you, your worship. Closing the museum from council perspective was not an easy decision. We feel the pinch all the time from all sides, okay? We hear my taxes are too high, my roads are terrible, my water's terrible. But we want this, we want that, and it's, you know, sometimes we have to make very tough decisions, and the museum was one that we had to make, and we made it feeling that we were doing what was best for all the ratepayers of Kirkland Lake. Having said that, I want to congratulate you. I am so happy. You know, I don't think anybody in this council really wanted to see that building closed down or used for something else. I mean, I can't speak for them, but none of them have said to me, oh, I want to see a lawyer in there or whatever, okay? So I want to congratulate you on all the work you've done, and you've done it incredibly fast. It's my understanding in talking to the mayor that we agreed with the Ontario Heritage Trust to help them find a new tenant. And that's basically what we've done, okay? As for the collection, I don't know all the legals in and out because there's stuff on permanent loan, there's stuff that was donated, there's stuff that had conditions on us, and all that has to be looked into. In terms of asking for money, I would recommend, rather than ask for money for snow plowing or grass cutting, that you apply for the grant system that we have in place. It's one of the things I'm pleased that this council did, because organizations would come forward and they want money for this or that, and this organization would get it, that organization wouldn't. And this way, by applying for the grant, there's rules, it's all cut and dried. So that's what I would recommend, but hey, I'm very pleased that you're moving on. Thank you.
Okay, so just before we continue, there is, I had kind of misspoken, sort of. Alluded to something that needs more clarification, so I will allow our CAO to speak upon those matters.
So staff, we're still under direction of council, which is to look at deaccessioning of the items and removing yourself from the lease of the chateau. Given, of course, the information provided by Top Hat, and I've been working closely with Bev, and again, job well done, impressive.
Thanks for your help too.
Yeah, that's been very impressive. In order to fully analyze all what is happening with Top Hat, administration will bring forward a report that will outline how all this can work, you know, how the artifacts and so forth, and other items that you mentioned, you're looking for from the town. We will present a report on all these items and move forward. I'm hoping to get this by council in November. However, there's a lot of moving parts in this one, and the Ontario Heritage Trust is a big moving part. So I say stay tuned. And I'm sure I'll be on the phone, you Bev, again many times when we put this report together to have a conversation and get how we can align both our efforts and to support your initiative, again, excellent work.
I know that Ontario Heritage Trust wants to be with us when Kelly had emailed and,
Tomorrow or Thursday.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're anxious to get this going too.
Yeah, we have a conversation with OHT tomorrow.
Yeah,
And I know they're having their board meeting in early October.
Yeah.
And so we'll be waiting for the decisions of that board, which will incorporate the information into a report.
yeah, some of you may not be aware, you may be aware, when they came for their meeting with us and with you. They toured the museum, they went to see the work that was being done, which is not completed, I understand, for the first part of that work. They put in $740,000 to work on part of this process, and they finished that first bit that they were working on. I can speak to that a little bit more. Maybe than me.
As far as I know, they're done. They
Yeah,
just
that part.
removed the balcony from the rear of the building.
Which was not part of the original structure, but was causing problems, safety issues. So that's gone, that part's done. And they're still continuing to look for funds to continue doing more stuff. So that 1.2 or 1.3 million engineering study they had done, they've embarked on that, they've done a lot of that, and their plan is to continue doing that. So that's not an issue to be worried about by the town anymore, anyway, about that part of it, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to follow up on the OHT part, just so everybody recognizes, as I understand it, one reason this hasn't been solidified already is they only meet quarterly, right? So that's one of the reasons we haven't been able to check that box. And so, as you explained, unfortunately, it's like a catch-22 every time we look at it, because we need a letter from here, but they can't until we get a letter. So it's just trying to get everything aligned in a timely fashion. And I know you want to speak to other things, and I know we can't necessarily finalize plans, but one thing that's urgent on our end would be allowing volunteers, so not to open the museum to the public day in and day out, but to have volunteers, for example, continue the children's Halloween event. Because the staff, everything about the building is currently being paid until December 31st. So it's not technically an expense, but it would be kind of a collaboration, if you will, between Top Hat and the town to still possibly hold a few events that people have been looking forward to in terms of our cultural, tourism initiative. I think there might be a possibility there. So I'm not certain that we can reach that conclusion now, but it is just something that's right on our minds. For example, the person who wanted information for their grandfather was the president of
The Bryce family.
Yeah.
is looking for information, wanting to do research on their grandfather, who's mine manager at Macassa. And
1930s.
because they would like to put his name forward to the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame, and so they're looking to do research at the museum.
So right now the doors are closed, so that's not a possibility.
So
We'd like that to be a possibility, have some flexibility and that stuff to keep the continuity of the museum going. And keep things that we think are important to have continuity for.
Yeah, so just to let you know, the CEO and myself have had discussions around that since this has been brought forward. So definitely there is staff dealing with those kind of issues, because again, I don't know the legalities of anything, or so again, that will come back through our CAO, but yes.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I do want to give other members of council, yeah. So any other members of council have anything to add to the conversation, or questions or comments? Okay, then I guess we could have went back and forth for a while longer. But yes, no, we do definitely appreciate your time coming to us. We know it has not been easy, but you have come such a long way since day one.
Yes.
And we're just thrilled for all of you, absolutely.
Well,
So
we
thank
want
you.
to bring the good news here and hope that you would consider it good news too, which you do, so that's great.
Yes,
And, yeah.
so we certainly appreciate your time. Thank you so much, ladies.
One thing I just wanted to add in here, we know it's important to the mining community to have that heritage happen. And they're gonna be excited about this news about the research, which is one of many people that would like to be able to continue research into mining heritage specifically for their family, and it's been a good instance, get them in the Mining Hall of Fame. These are things that are important to the people that support this community and inspire people. So-
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you so much. So can I have a mover to accept? Counselor Ranger, seconded by, sorry, Counselor Owens, thank you.
Moved by Counselor Janice Ranger, seconded by Counselor Owens. Be resolved the delegation and presentations made on September 17th, 2024. Be received for information.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item number 5, acceptance of minutes and recommendations. May I have a mover for 5.1 council minutes? Counselor Dykens, seconded by Counselor Ranger.
Moved by Counselor Dolly Dyken, seconded by Counselor Janice Ranger. Be it resolved of council for the minutes of the following meeting, minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 3rd, 2024.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. May I have a mover and a seconder for item 5.2, committees of council minutes. Mover Counselor Owens, seconded by Counselor Shava. Thank you.
Moved by Counselor Casey Owens, seconded by Counselor Lad Chava. Be it resolved in council about the minutes of the following meeting, minutes of the Kirkland Lake Museum Advisory Committee held July 24th, 2024.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item number 6, reports of municipal officers and communications. May I have a mover? Janice Ranger, seconded by Counselor Owen.
Moved by Counselor Janice Ranger, seconded by Counselor Rick Owen. Be it resolved that report number 2024 or 36 entitled Supplemental Asset Management Plan Phase 3 Amendment be received, and that council approve the amendment to the town's updated asset management plan, AMP Phase 3 as presented, and find that the updated asset management plan as amended be posted on the town of Kirkland Lake's official website.
Thank you. We'll have Lloyd Crawford, Treasurer, Sean Lockhart, Director of Corporate Services, and Alexa Wild, Senior Asset Management Advisor, present the Supplemental Asset Management Plan Phase 3 Amendment. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, to council. We're gonna let Alexa kind of have her presentation first. I believe she'll probably try and attempt to, answer some of your questions. And after that, I'll have a few comments and be available for questions as well. So I guess it's your turn, Alexa.
Thank you very much. Am I able to share my screen?
You are?
It says it's disabled.
Madam Clerk is working on it.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Perfect. Is that showing up for everyone?
It is. Thank you.
Great. So thank you very much for inviting me today. My name is Alexa Wild. I am a Senior Asset Management Advisor with PSD Citywide, and I was the primary consultant that has been working with Kirkland Lake staff to develop this asset management plan. So firstly, I do want to thank all of the town staff for their cooperation and dedication as we work through this project. Today, I will be reviewing the updates that have been made to this iteration of the asset management plan, making sure that it meets the legislative requirements for 2024. And before diving into the specifics of this asset management plan, I did want to provide an overview and the context for the project and asset management in general. So the town of Kirkland Lake and PSD Citywide have been collaborating for a number of years now, including with previous iterations of this asset management plan. For our current project, we aim to update the AMP in compliance with the second leg of the OREG 580/17 regulation. And I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of the regulations in later slides. But I really want to personally thank the key contributors to this project, who were Lloyd Crocker and Sean Lockhart, although there was many other departments that were certainly involved in the background. So firstly, why the need for municipal asset management? We can acknowledge that municipal infrastructure assets are vital for our communities. And from our perspective, we need a way to organize what we own, a way to understand what services we provide through those assets, and a way to ensure accountability to our residents and stakeholders for the services that they use on a daily basis. So the key three objectives are really the driving force behind not only this regulation, but the increased awareness amongst various stakeholders for the need for asset management. So what does asset management involve? From a municipal perspective, the value is the level of service that we are providing to our residents. A high level set, a high level set of parameters that we can use to determine whether the level of service of a particular system or network is here on the screen. So the cost is how much will it cost the town to replace or repair a given asset, and when will this cost be required? The performance is what is the current output or performance of that asset? Is it in good shape? Is it in poor shape? And the risk is what is the potential risk if this asset were to fail? Who would be impacted? Are we able to identify those high risk assets? So if you increase or decrease any of these parameters, the others will change. So just a simple example is if you spend less money on any given asset category, that may result in an increased risk of failure and a decrease in the performance level. So if your desire is to reduce risk, then your costs may increase. So with the completion of this AMP, the town has further refined the centralized asset inventory which now contains 4 key items. As mentioned, we've got the TCA, condition assessments, life cycle strategies and risk frameworks, and our staff knowledge all coming into one central repository. So Ontario Regulation 58817 has defined requirements for 3 AMP iterations, the first of which was required by July 1st, 2022, and included measuring the current levels of service, asset inventory analysis, current performance of assets, life cycle activities, and costs to maintain current levels of service, and impact of growth on current levels of service for just the core assets. So in 2022, it was only for roads, stormwater, water, sanitary, and bridges. The town has met these requirements with the last iteration of their AMP. So with the completion of this AMP, the town has now achieved full compliance with 2024 requirements. So they are the same as the 2022 requirements. However, it is now expanded to the non-core asset categories. So those include facilities, vehicles, machinery and equipment, and land improvement assets. So while I will give a summary of the 2024 results, I'll just touch on what happens after 2025. So 2025 is an upcoming requirement of now looking at projected proposed service levels. So looking at what we're doing currently and whether that needs to increase, decrease, or change in any way. But after that 2025 edition is published, the regulation then requires that all AMPs be updated once every 5 years, and that council conduct an annual review of its asset management process on or before July 1st of each year, and that the asset management policy and plan be posted on the municipal website. This is to make sure that there is continuous eyes on the asset management plan, that it does end up being a living document and doesn't just sit on a shelf not being looked at for 5 years, 10 years. So this asset management plan, we utilized 2022 year-end financials. There's always a bit of a lag because of waiting on audits to be completed, etc. So it is normal for a 2024 AMP to be using 2022 year-end values. This presentation will provide an overview of the current state of the municipal infrastructure, provide recommendations to increase confidence in the analysis and decision-making of the town, and show the town's financial capacity to meet long-term capital requirements. So myself and town staff have worked closely together over the last few months to refine the asset inventory in citywide to ensure that the AMP provides a realistic and accurate representation of the current state of municipal infrastructure. This included reviewing and updating replacement costs for each asset category. Now, the replacement costs for each asset category are displayed here on the screen. And as you can see, the replacement cost of the total asset portfolio is about 933 million. I do want to note that the last iteration of the AMP listed the total replacement cost of the portfolio at 474 million. This is quite a dramatic increase, but it's the result of a few things. So the first one is a thorough review, including staff input, to update existing replacement costs in the system to make sure that this is as accurate as possible. You will also notice a significant increases in the replacement cost for underground utility infrastructure and roads within this AMP. These more accurately represent the construction costs of today to replace these assets. So when considering replacement costs, we need to ensure that we're accounting for all aspects of a capital project that may inadvertently be excluded from long-term budgeting. So that can include the engineering design that is required as part of a water main replacement project, or the inspection or mobilization or adjacent property rehabilitation. Sometimes we can get lost in the long-term budgeting where we are only taking into account the cost of the pipe and not the rest of the project. So we want to make sure that we're not under budgeting when it comes time to actually complete the project. So looking at replacement costs, the primary replacement cost method for each asset category is seen here in the table. So there's a range of methods that we can use to determine the replacement cost of an asset, and some are more accurate and reliable than others. So this AMP relied on two kind of methodologies. The first one is either user-defined cost or cost by unit. So these are based on costs provided by municipal staff or engineering firms that can include average costs from recent contracts, or it can be from engineering reports and assessments that give estimates on replacements. And in some instances, it's staff knowledge. They are the ones that are replacing these on a regular basis. So they'll have the most recent information. If we are not able to obtain a user-defined cost or a cost per unit, then we're looking at cost inflation and CPI tables. So this is taking the historical cost of the asset and inflating it based on the consumer price index or the non-residential building construction price index. Because sometimes construction costs, for example, roads in the last about 4 years have dramatically outpaced the just general consumer price index for inflation. So user-defined costs based on reliable sources are a reasonably accurate way and reliable way to determine asset replacement costs. Inflation is typically used only in the absence of reliable replacement cost data. It is a reliable method for recently purchased or constructed assets, but as an asset ages and new products and technologies become available, cost inflation can become less and less reliable. A recent example is if you take a pickup truck that was purchased in 2005 and solely inflate it to today's numbers, it might tell you that you can buy a brand new pickup truck for $30,000. And we know that just going to any car lot, I would be so happy to purchase a truck for $30,000 today. Oh, sorry. So the majority of the asset categories did rely on user-defined or cost per unit methods. This was quite a big update to this iteration of the AMP. So we have increased the level of accuracy in the total replacement costs for this version of the AMP. So this is showing the current condition of assets within the asset portfolio. And asset condition is central to asset management planning. it really helps us determine how much longer an asset has before we need to consider that replacement. So you can see here that the distribution of asset condition by asset category, it's weighted by replacement cost. So collectively for all of the assets owned by Kirkland Lake, 51% of the assets are in fair or better condition. So the condition of assets relies on both a combination of age-based calculations and field condition data. So the charts displayed show the percentage of assets that had condition assessments applied and the source of that information. So overall, assessed condition data was only available for 12% of the assets. And for the remaining portfolio, age was used as an approximation. So age-based condition typically overstates the needs of replacement and overall deficit. And assessed condition can really help build that confidence in decision-making. I'll go back to the pickup truck example. If a pickup truck is in your system saying that it's only good for 10 years, by the time that truck is 8 years old, it's saying that it's in pretty poor condition. But if you've had a low mileage 8-year-old pickup truck, you know that it's probably in better than poor condition. So the more asset condition data that we can put into the system, the more accurate the long-term capital reporting is going to be. So assessed condition data is also used in asset management decision-making to mitigate risk associated with asset failure. It's used to identify the most economic time to intervene and then accurately predict those future expenditure requirements. So here we're going to look at the forecasted capital requirements over the next 75 years. So having defined replacement costs, the conditions of the assets, and identifying any life cycle activities that we're intending on doing in the interim, a long-term capital forecast was developed as part of this asset management plan. And so this does include both asset rehabilitation and asset replacement requirements. So over the next 75 years, you'll see a dotted red line going through the middle of the chart. That is showing the average over those 75 years. So, and that is referring to each 5-year bucket. So that line is showing that according to the calculations, we should be looking at about $100 million, just under, every 5 years to keep up with our existing asset inventory. So here you can see that the town is currently committing about $3 million per year towards capital projects from sustainable revenue sources. So this, we're talking about the community, Canada Community Building Fund, which was formerly the gas tax, OSIF funding, and tax allocations that are dedicated to reserves or capital projects. The average annual requirements for both tax and rate funded assets to continue to provide the current level of service totals about $19 million. With that $3 million in spending each year, we are looking at an annual deficit of roughly $16 million. So put differently, the assets are currently being funded at 18% of their longer term capital requirements. So we will use a term target reinvestment rates and actual reinvestment rates. So target reinvestment rates refer to the annual capital requirements as a percentage of the total replacement cost. So if we have $100,000 in a certain asset category and we want to be spending $10,000 a year over 10 years, then that would be a target reinvestment rate of 10%. The actual reinvestment rate looks at the annual capital funding that we're spending on each of those asset categories. So it is normal that our actual reinvestment rate is below the target. What we can see here is that the target reinvestment rate overall is 2%, and our actual reinvestment rate is 0.33%. So by comparing the actual versus target reinvestment rates, the town can better determine the extent of any existing funding gap and how it looks on a category by category basis. So based on all of the information, the current infrastructure deficit, it is recommended that the tax funded assets be see an increase of 2.2% annually over a 20-year period, water rates by 3.3% annually, and sanitary rates by 6.7% annually over the next 20 years for a gradual increase solely for the purpose of phasing in full funding of the asset categories covered in this AMP for eliminating that infrastructure deficit. So one important piece to note is that these numbers do not factor in one-time grants or what we consider non-sustainable sources of revenue. So these will continue and have always been an essential source of revenue for municipal governments for investment in capital infrastructure. So the more one-time funding or non-sustainable grants that we can incorporate into a capital budget, the lower these increases will need to be. And it's noted that adjustments to taxes should also be supplemented with project prioritization and evaluations of desired service levels. As you get further into your asset data, you may find that this certain project was on the books and we should be spending this money, but it actually looks in pretty good condition, so we can defer this project. So there's a lot of nuance when it comes to actual project prioritization. The intention of an asset management plan is to look at the larger picture in general, not at individual projects. So as a summary for our recommendations and next steps, it is recommended to continue to review and refine the asset inventory in consultation with internal departments and stakeholders and any consultants that you use on a regular basis. It is recommended that a portfolio-wide data governance strategy be implemented to increase the accuracy and the confidence in the data. The more confident you are in your data, the more confident you are in the results and recommendations. It is also recommended to develop an established cycle for updating replacement costs and condition information in Citywide to keep it as up to date as possible. And finally, for the asset data side, we are recommending to review all estimated useful lives that are defined in the tangible capital asset policy as part of a regular policy review. This is where we can look at any adjustments. If you are currently saying that pickup trucks only last 10 years, maybe in reality that is 15 years. And we want to make sure that the data in the system most accurately represents what we're actually seeing in the field. So in regards to next steps, the town will need to start preparing for the 2025 requirements for OREG 58817. This includes identifying proposed levels of service and developing a medium to long-term external communication strategy to engage the public on asset management and obtain feedback to inform development of any proposed service levels. And lastly, we must consider that continuous improvement and regular review are essential in asset management practices. So this AMP should be treated as a living document and updated regularly to better inform long-term planning. So accordingly, the yearly capital operating budget should include funding to assist your operational staff in achieving the assessments of town assets that will then be used in the future to update future iterations of this plan, making sure that we are working with the most reliable data possible. So with that brief overview, I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dykens.
To you, Madam Mayor, to Alexa, looking for clarity on something I think I heard you say, when you are talking about age-based condition data and assessed condition data. And that assessed condition data builds confidence, of course, in decision-making. Did I hear you say that we only do that 12% of the time? Is that, I heard 12% and I think it was related to.
Yes, so I'm just finding that chart. It's 12% of the overall asset portfolio. So some asset categories are have much more assessed data than others. So for example, your category for bridges has 100% of the assets with an assessed condition. So none of that is being estimated. The road network has 87% of the total road network. We're working with assessed conditions on those assets. Whereas when we look at things like the stormwater network and the sanitary network, 0% of those assets have assessed conditions. So they are being entirely estimated based on their age.
Sorry, could you repeat? Sorry, Madam Mayor. To you for clarity. What were the last two items? You said storm.
So the categories that don't have any assessed condition data are stormwater, water, sanitary sewer, the airport, facilities, fleet, land improvements, and machinery and equipment. And that summary, if you're interested, can be found on page 25.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Yes.
Mayor, if I could interject.
Yep.
I just want to make something very clear. When we talk assessed status, the ones that have the 100%, they're legislated. There's bridge inspections going on. We've done a road study recently where they actually went around and looked at the roads to assess them. There's an awful lot of stuff in there that doesn't meet that assessed, call it cutoff. But, you know, I can tell you practically speaking, the mechanics know what state the trucks are in, but we don't roll that into the asset management plan. Stefan will know where there's problems with sewage and drainage and stuff like that. He'll have an idea of what's gotta be dealt with soon. But it's not officially recognized in this plan because it doesn't have a formal process to assess it. So even though it sounds like we're almost ignoring the largest part of our assets, we're not. It's just not, it hasn't been subjected to the same formal process that the bridges and the roads went through. There's been discussion in the past about putting cameras and stuff down inside our infrastructure, sewage and water. And there's lots of discussion going on right now about that. And that would be kind of a driver of getting to a better assessed and better idea of what, you know, a more formal assessment process. But just to be clear that we're not, you know, not looking at this stuff, it just doesn't kind of meet that standard that we're using in the asset management plan. It's not a formal process. Anyways, I just kind of want to throw that in there.
That was an important point. Thank you, sir. Councillor Owens.
In previous years for budget, through you, Madam Mayor, previous years when we've done the budget, we always start with the same phrase. Well, the last asset management plan says we need to have a minimum increase of this and this for water and wastewater. So now do these numbers get changed in reflection to what, and I know it says here will be adjusted in depending on government funding or whatever, but so next year when we start our budget process, is it bang 6.7% increase right off the top for sewers?
And through you, Madam Mayor, exactly that. For water and sewer, that's exactly how we've been doing it. We add that amount, take the budget that's presented by the director, and we add that amount. 3.7 and it was less than 6.7 for the other one. Taxes, it's a little bit more complicated. I can't say to you, we have a line that says 2.2 or 2, which was the old number. And when I get to my little piece of this puzzle tonight, I'll kind of talk to that a little bit about how we get there through the budget process and the things that I think we really need to improve and recognize, you know, this report has put a much finer edge, I think, on what we've been talking about and seeing now for 2 years. And which is the whole point of the report, is to start us thinking a lot more strategically about what we're doing. So, yeah, I'm gonna talk a little more about the operating side, the taxes side, but the water and sewer, we are already tacking that into our budget system.
So knowing that our treasurer is going to continue with like a secondary part, if we have any questions specifically for our presenter, can we address those now and then we can address our treasurer after? Is that acceptable? Okay. Councillor Shabba, do you have a question for our presenter?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yeah, to you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm looking at page 191 of 298 of your slide. And I just, I get it for all the items there except for land improvements. So can you just speak about that? What do we have to do with that? I see what the amount is intangible in terms of dollars that you have here, but still, I don't understand the condition, overall condition as it relates to the land improvements. Can you just
Sorry, do you mind if I just ask page 191, what's the title?
The title is overall condition of the asset portfolio. The bars,
That's careful minutes, that's.
oh, okay, I just look at the page on the side, 191 of
Yeah, sorry, that's
Yeah.
the report
It's the
page.
chart.
Yeah, that's the
overall
agenda.
chart of the
condition
condition of
of the
asset portfolio.
Alexa, it's the overall condition of the asset portfolio.
Yeah.
Page.
Okay. Is that page 25 of the report?
Sorry, I don't have the pages on mine. It says 51% assets at the bottom.
Yeah, are in fair or better condition.
Give me 1 second. I will find that page.
About halfway through. Sorry, I don't know why my page numbers aren't showing up.
Sorry.
That's fine.
So are you, I'm not entirely sure on the exact page, but you're just looking for an overview of what we're looking at with the conditions specifically with land improvements.
That's correct.
Okay, so with land improvements, we are looking at playground structures, fields and courts, parking lots, etc. So you're going to be at the mercy of what the estimated useful life was when that asset was put in place. So an example is you might have paved a parking lot 30 years ago, but if we only have it in the system as it should only last 30 years, it's going to say that its condition is at 0%. So this is why, even if it is an informal condition assessment protocol, like Mr. Crocker indicated that, you know, our mechanics know what the condition of our vehicles are. This is really helpful if we can say, okay, let's consider all of these assets on a percentage scale. If you think it's like halfway through its life, let's give it a 50%. That can greatly increase the accuracy of reporting in future iterations. When we look at a parking lot that might be 30 years old and the system is calculating it being a condition of 0, but when someone actually goes out and stands in that parking lot, is it really at 0? Because if it is at 0, you should probably be fencing it off and not letting the public anywhere near it. So in reality, sure, it may have deteriorated and maybe it's at 30 or 40%. And yes, it needs to be on our radar to repave or replace that asset. but it shouldn't be at 0. So because we are using those age-based calculations on things like these playground structures and parking lots, it's going to overstate the need for replacement of these assets. So in reality, the overall condition is probably in a lot better shape than what this report is showing.
Yeah, anything further for our presenter? Thank you very much for your time. Yes. So going back to operations, Mr. Crawford.
So I just want to say thank you to Alexa. I think if you saw the database that we're dealing with to produce this report, the amount of time and effort that goes into just keeping that thing accurate as best we can, you would understand why we need the help, and Alexa's been an excellent help to us. Very kind of keeps us pointed in the right direction so that we can produce these kind of things for you guys.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Have a great night.
Thanks.
So through you, Madam Mayor, you have a report in front of you, which we've thrown a bunch of stuff in there. Much of it you heard from Alexa just a few minutes ago. There's a couple of things I'd like to kind of emphasize in the process, and there's a couple of points I just want to make right at the opening. You don't see her, but there's a young lady named Alina who's an intern here, and she spends hours and hours and hours staring at a computer screen, trying to keep this database, that living database that was mentioned here. The amount of effort, the amount of back and forth, the emails that she has to spend sending out, asking directors, or can you answer this question? Can you answer that question? It's a tremendous amount of effort. If going forward, as we have it legislated, it's quite a burden. And at some point, we're gonna have to kind of address how we want to keep that thing a live document and use it in a manner that, we've discussed this evening. The change from the July to this one, it's like a 97% increase. I just want to emphasize again. So we ran 2 very large projects that finished in 2022. That was the KL Gold extension of the water and sewer system, and the Swastika project, which brought the sewer back to town to be treated in town versus at Swastika. That gave us an awful lot of good information for some of that infrastructure things, the sewage pipes, water pipes. And Stefan could give you a much better idea of what we're talking about, that winning the ground, but it helped us a great deal, put some current numbers on those assets in our database, which in the past were 70-year-old assets that had 70-year-old costs that were brought forward at inflation. Inflation isn't the best method, but we just do not have the resources to go out there and take pictures and poke around and look at every single piece of asset that we have and bring it up to that assessed level. So, that's the biggest part of the change. There's also a significant change in there on the equipment. We recognized, that many of our trucks, our specialty equipment, plows, fire trucks, stuff like that, were thoroughly undervalued in the first version you've seen. So, by saying it's the end of 22, we're starting to recognize the realities of what happened after COVID, where suddenly everything was 3 times the price it used to be, and you can't, just getting people to show up here to do contracts comes at a premium for us. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of frame part of why you're seeing such a big change now versus earlier this year. The budget. So this one is, I won't beat this one to death this evening, but I do want to recognize that every time we go in front of you with a budget, and every time we draft a budget, essentially 3 budgets that I've seen now, this particular document is a very big part of that decision-making by staff and what you're seeing there. There's been a couple of things happen that we haven't, on the tax side, we have not got to the number they're recommending. We've had some serious operating challenges, and some decisions were made about using reserves and stuff like that instead of trying to use tax rates, which again, that's well within your purview and that's what happened here. So is there, like I said earlier, there's no line in the budget that says 2.2% goes to capital. But if you look at the budget, you will see that there's a column called tax, tax funded. And that's kind of the number we're talking about. That number needs to get a lot higher. That's the truth of what we're looking at here, is that the tax rate has to reflect the fact that we have an awful lot of assets that are coming due very, very soon. And you're gonna see an awful lot of decision making. You already know this. You've lived it for 2 years, some of you for much longer. We're facing realities now that we didn't expect. That Taylor Avenue, the numbers we saw for that compared to what we were used to seeing for those kind of projects, it's just an astronomical increase. So you're gonna feel an awful lot of pressure. You're gonna see it in particular, you're gonna see it in this budget. I'm gonna break it out a little bit more clearly, so we understand where we're trying to get our money. It's very clear in the capital budget if you look at it, but I didn't bring it to your direction, to your attention fully in saying this is to try to address our backlog, this is to deal with what's in front of us. But the truth is, much like Alexa said, that database is a guideline. It's kind of like, here's the numbers that you should be putting aside and spending. We spend it. You saw it in that capital budget. You saw the amount of money we use to maintain our water and our sewage systems. Just the 2 plants alone, we're spending $1.5 million per year just to keep them up to date, to do the maintenance, do the replacement work that has to happen in that. You're very well aware, all of you, of all the projects and stuff that shows up on a list of things that need to be done, and choices are made every year. And unfortunately, those choices are getting a little bit harder because the pressures, the economic pressures especially, are just you wouldn't have seen this 5 years ago. You would have expected a much more kind of gradual type of discussion, but it didn't happen that way. COVID changed everything, and for whatever, you hear all kinds of different reasons for it. That's the reality we're dealing with now. And the next budget, I will endeavor to be a little bit more clear about this particular piece of the budget. And you'll understand when you're making your decisions about how much we put the tax rate up versus how much we're drawing reserves. The reality is we're healthy, in reserves and stuff like that from an operating point of view. But when you look at this document, you say, well, we're not even in the right ballpark to prepare for what's coming. That being said, not all doom and gloom. We do access funds. We do all the time. You just had 2 projects, one new one in front of us for the government road out towards Chevy Hughes. We've got one going right now. There are other levels of government that come to the table, depending on what kind of a project you have in front of them and whether we fit their criteria. And that takes some of the pressure off of what I was just talking about. So, the better we are at getting those dollars, the less pressure we put on the ratepayers and the water and sewage ratepayers as well. So again, not all doom and gloom, but it's getting harder. If you don't have a homes plan in their mind, a lot of them don't want to give you money. Whereas before it was more of an infrastructure mentality. And that's something that's changed. And I think, you watch the news, you understand why they're talking about it that way. But anyways, I'd be happy to answer any questions that either came out of the original presentation or this report.
Sorry, Councillor Owens, you did have a follow-up regarding the budget. Do you recall it? I'm sorry.
The aspect of it's been very clearly played out for us, so I'm good.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? Nothing further. Thank you. Do we need the motion to be reread? No? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item 6.2, Blue Box Recycling in Kirkland Lake Landfill. May I have a mover? Councillor Owens, seconded. Councillor Owen.
Moved by Counselor Casey Owens, seconded by Counselor Rick. Did I say it wrong?
Owens, then
Owen, sorry, so I had it ready, sorry. Moved by Counselor Casey Owen, seconded by Counselor Rick Owen. Be resolved that report number 2024 PW 009 entitled Blue Box Recycling and Kirkland Lake Landfill be received for information.
Thank you. We'll have Stefan Forsaini, Director of Public Works. Thank you, sir, to join us about Blue Box Recycling. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me tonight. Through you to Council, I'm here today to discuss the upcoming changes with Blue Box Recycling and the future of Kirkland Lakes landfill. This report highlights a significant transition in how we manage recycling in our community. And I want to provide an overview of the upcoming changes, their implications, and the actions we must take to ensure a smooth transition for both our residents and businesses. For many years, municipalities, including Kirkland Lake, have been responsible for collecting recyclable materials, with some of the costs being offset by provincial funding. However, in June 2021, Ontario introduced a new regulation for the Blue Box program, and this regulation marks a major shift. By January 1st, 2026, full responsibility for Blue Box recycling will shift to the producers, those companies that create the packaging and materials. Our official transition period will begin October 1st, 2025 and end December 31st, 2025. During this time, the responsibility for recycling collection in Kirkland Lake will move from our hands to a producer responsibility organization, or short PRO, specifically circular materials, with GFL as the preferred service provider. Key changes and impacts for residents, eligible sources like single-family homes, multi-unit residences, schools, and retirement homes will see a seamless transition. Circular Materials through GFL will manage the collection and recycling of Blue Box materials starting October 2025. For businesses and non-eligible sources such as industrial and commercial properties, places of worship, and municipal facilities will need to secure their own recycling services by October 1st, 2025. This will mean an additional responsibility for these entities, but we must work with them to ensure they're prepared for the transition. There will also be updates to the types of materials accepted in the Blue Box program. A comparison of the pre and post transition list is available and part of the next presentation, which expands the range of items that can be recycled. This aligns with our ongoing goal of reducing waste and conserving resources. The town has been receiving Blue Box stewardship funding for its residential program. However, this funding will end on October 1st, 2025. The good news is, after transition, the town will no longer bear the cost of handling Blue Box material, leading to a reduction in future waste management costs. Kirkland Lakes landfill. Another important component of this transition is the future of Kirkland Lakes landfill. As we progressively move towards not accepting recyclable materials at the landfill, we will extend its life and reduce our environmental footprint. The environmental, economic, and social benefits are clear, and a report to council will be brought forth in the future with more details on this. In conclusion, we recognize the challenges ahead, particularly in ensuring a smooth transition from non-eligible sources and determining our landfill strategy moving forward. We will need to continue providing support and education to our community, businesses, and institutions throughout this transition. Thank you for letting me present this evening, and I will now shift our attention to Brad Whitelaw, a project support representative from the Continuous Improvement Fund, who will be presenting us with additional information this evening with a PowerPoint presentation. If there's any questions afterwards, I'll be more than happy to answer them along with Brad. Thank you. Here's Brad.
Good evening, members of council, staff, of Town and Kirkland Lake. As Stefan mentioned, my name is Brad Whitelaw. I'm been hired by Continuous Improvement Fund to assist them with providing municipalities with support during the Blue Box transition. Can everybody hear me and see the presentation okay? Yes? Perfect. Okay. So for tonight's agenda, I will be presenting information to you on the changes that are occurring to the province of Ontario's Blue Box recycling program. I will walk you through, sorry, my apologies here. I will walk you through the rationale for the change to full producer responsibility, as Stefan had mentioned, a regulation overview, the timelines that are involved, the council considerations that you must factor into, and any community cooperation expectations and information that communities will need to gather as part of this process. As a result of the percentage of recovered recyclable material dropping and gross Blue Box costs rising, the Blue Box program was reevaluated, and it was determined that a regulatory approach was needed. This is where producers would be responsible of the Blue Box materials for all of the waste generated as part of the products and packaging that they make. That includes any markets and importers of the products. In Ontario, the Blue Box program is transitioning from a model of shared industry funding to one of full producer responsibility, where producers are fully operationally and financially responsible for their products and packaging once they reach the end of life and are disposed. This regulation, O391-21 and subsequently O349-22, was finalized by the province on June 3rd, 2022. As I mentioned, it ensures that producers are going to be fully responsible for operational and financial management of the Blue Box program in Ontario. It sets mandatory and enforceable requirements for Blue Box collection systems. It gives producers choices for the resource requirements of the Blue Box representative in a competitive market. Municipalities may potentially be a service provider under this full producer responsibility framework if commercial terms can be agreed upon with circular materials. The final regulation includes provisions such as the establishment of a province-wide common collection system that transitions all current municipal programs and expands service to all communities regardless of size, except for the far north, all residential dwelling types, schools, publicly run retirement homes, and long-term care facilities, and additional public spaces. It also includes an enhanced and standardized list of materials that will need to be collected and recycled, as well as establishing high progressive and enforceable targets. Under the existing program or old regulation, as we can see on the left-hand side of the slide, we were collecting from single-family, seasonal residences, and multi-residential buildings. We did not have formal or complete acceptance of schools, long-term care, or retirement homes. When the new regulation came into effect, as we can see on the right-hand side of the slide, sources that were not previously included under the old regulation were expanded into this new regulation to allow for additional sources to be collected from. We saw public and private elementary or secondary schools, long-term care and retirement homes, and public spaces formally adopted into the Blue Box plan. However, there are many other sources that a community might collect from or allow to use their Blue Box program. These are often referred to as industrial, commercial, and institutional, or IC&I, or under the regulations, they're deemed as non-eligible sources. These include businesses, not-for-profits, and municipalities, facilities, just to name a few. These sources were never eligible under the previous regulation and will continue to not be eligible under the new regulation. If a community would like to continue to provide Blue Box service to their non-eligible sources as of January 1st, 2026, they will need to manage, procure, and pay for the collection, haulage, and processing of the non-eligible sources separate to this new Blue Box common collection system that is run by the pros. There are some properties that have both eligible and non-eligible materials. For example, mixed-use properties where there is a residential apartment over top of a business. The residential material will continue to be eligible and receive Blue Box collection as part of the new Blue Box Common Collection System. But the business part will not be eligible, and it will be up to your community to decide whether you want to collect from those sources. As Stefan had mentioned, under the previous regulation, we saw a mixture of materials being recycled in communities. There were designated materials such as aluminum cans, glass, plastic, metal, and newspaper, in which all communities needed to accept in their Blue Box program. And communities could then choose at least 2 other materials to accept, such as cardboard and polystyrene. However, under the new regulation, the list of designated recyclable materials will now be harmonized. In other words, it will be consistent across the entire province of Ontario. We will see more materials being accepted in the Blue Box program as a result. As part of the new Blue Box regulation, there will be strict targets that producers must meet based on their material category. These targets are higher than the previous regulation, and then they gradually increase over time. There is a range of compliance up to enforcement with penalties that the Resource Productivity and Recovery Authority, or RIPRA, can action if producers are not meeting their targets. This is an area of the regulation that we saw much improvement on when compared to the previous regulation. From July 1st of 2023 until December 31st of 2025, producers will assume responsibility for transitioning communities on or before the dates contained in their Blue Box transition schedule. Full extended producer responsibility, or EPR, begins on January 1st, 2026, which involves expansion to non-service small communities, facilities, and public spaces. For the town of Kirkland Lake, your Blue Box transition date, as Stefan had mentioned, is October 1st, 2025. If a community transitions before December 31st, 2025, they need to decide whether to opt in or opt out of the Blue Box service provision. For the town of Kirkland Lake, that decision was made to opt out of providing Blue Box service, which means that Circular Materials will now be responsible for the Blue Box program in your community as of October 1st, 2025. If a community would like to remain involved with the Blue Box program, it means they are opting in until the final date of December 31st, 2025. The community would then look to becoming a service provider to the producers, which means that they would be signing an agreement to get paid by the producer to manage the Blue Box program according to their terms and conditions. And if a community would like to divest itself in the Blue Box program, as you did, you would be at that point coordinating with the producers and the contractor service for a smooth transition to the new collection contractor. As of right now, if a community would like to remain involved in the Blue Box program as a service provider post-transition, the community could compete and bid on Circular Materials Collection Services RFP, which closed just recently. It would be best for your staff to reach out to Circular Materials to discuss this process and options available to your community. Communities may also decline to participate in this program process with Circular Materials with secure arrangements to an alternative service provider to provide Blue Box service to your residents on the transition date. The CIF, in partnership with AMO, prepared a letter for local communities to send to various Blue Box program stakeholders. For example, the producer responsibility organizations like Circular Materials, contractors around the expectations for effective management of key program service delivery dates under the Blue Box program's responsibility network. The intent is to establish clear roles and responsibilities between the municipalities and the producers to ensure residents experience a smooth transition to the new Blue Box program. This letter contains items such as management of customer calls and complaints, management of materials not collected or rejected, coordination of new development requirements for the Blue Box collection. Staff will continue to spend minor resources on Blue Box coordination with the producers post-transition, at least until the program is well established. This letter can be modified to fit local circumstances and facilitate good faith cooperation in coordinating and important program service deliveries. Your community staff can access this letter through CIF's website. There is a municipal information that producers will need in order to understand your Blue Box program and its practices. This information is listed on this slide, but to describe a few, it includes the numbers of sources, for example, how many single-family homes receive recycling collection, the number of depots, depot operating hours, your materials accepted, and the type of bins that you use to collect with. It is important for communities such as yourself to gather this information and work collaboratively with the producers throughout this process to ensure a smooth transition. Thank you very much for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions or comments from members of council? None noted. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Okay.
There won't be payments for staff, so like
Okay.
last one, can you wait?
I don't believe there has been any questions presented to the presenter, so you may proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question is more for staff on this one. So even today in 2024, there's multiple homes in Kirkland Lake. I've noticed that don't have recycling carts, but that have multiple garbage carts. So in your report, it says that moving forward, the town of Kirkland Lake dump will not be accepting any recycled material anymore to extend their life, which is good. What happens to these houses that somehow manage to get a second cart? But no recycling?
I'm not sure how to answer that question and how it's relevant to this.
So I think that because in the report, it states that the landfill will not be accepting recyclable material.
We're moving towards that.
Yeah.
There is an additional report, as I stated, that will be coming to council to explain that fully.
Okay, so upcoming information
Correct.
in yeah, more detail to come.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Yes, sometimes when we're given reports, we do want to get a little bit more into the weeds than what's set before us at that date. So we do appreciate that a secondary report will be coming to us. I do appreciate your time, Mr. Whitelaw. It is a significant change, and we do appreciate that you came to kind of make it a little bit more clearer. And if there is anything further, we will filter it through our staff. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Do we need the motion read again? Oh, Councillor Shabba, yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, Stefan, I've been to the landfill site many times. As a matter of fact, seem to go there every week. For one thing or the other. I can see the pile for the electronics. I can see the pile for fridges and stoves and all of that stuff. But some of the stuff that we do put in a blue boxes, cardboards and whatnot. So do they end up in the landfill site or are they being recycled somewhere else?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Currently, the landfill has been accepting a lot of recyclable materials, and that's why we feel that this transition will help us towards more progressive approach with the landfill. And that we're going to be able to limit or restrict many of these recyclable materials going forward. Because you're absolutely correct, it is an issue that we're having. A lot of commercial properties especially are, for example, bringing in a very large quantity of cardboard. So we feel this is a great time for us to pump the brakes, so to speak, on these types of activities.
So can I follow up, please, Madam?
Yep.
So you mean to say that, so when folks put their regular garbage cart out and then the recycling box decided, so to do their best to separate those two? In fact, the two will end up in the same place in landfill site. Is that?
No, that's not accurate. The blue box recycling will be handled completely separate from solid waste management and will be treated completely different in a different location.
Yeah, but the commercial people, when they come in to dump their stuff, you're saying we do have some maybe cardboards in there, load that may end up in landfill site.
Currently, yes.
So there's no way to, for them to separate or sort those out.
And that's where we're hoping to enforce that and bring some limitations to our landfills where they will be forced to handle their recyclable materials in a more responsible way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen?
Yeah, just a quick question for Stefan. About how many more years do we have at the landfill site?
The specific number, I would have to get back to you, Councillor Owen. I am not sure of the exact number.
But it's not like next year or the year after?
No.
I didn't expect to see the treasurer.
I heard 15 years.
I know that number because we're in the middle of the audit right now. And one of the calculations in the audit is about the capacity of the thing. That I just got a report off of Meat, who handles that side of it. So we're about 30 years out right now, 30 to 34. That's moved around a little bit lately. Surprising how much volume can vary from year to year. But right now it's in that range.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dykens?
Do you, Madam Mayor, to, Director Stefan? So currently, when people put their garbage out and then they put their recycle out, where does the recycling go?
The recycling is, to my knowledge, is brought to Timmins
To Timmins through?
through GFL's collection.
Okay, good, thank you. This was never clear.
Anything further about the report? Nothing noted. Do we need the motion read again? No, we're good. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item number 6.3, request for easement Hydro One Networks Inc. Can I have a mover? Councillor Owen, a seconder, Councillor Shava. Madam Clerk?
It's moved by Councillor Rick Owen, seconded by Councillor Lavachava. Be it resolved that report number 2024 DEV 25 entitled Request for Easement Agreement with Hydro One Network Inc., part of mining claim L1439 Ricks Trail be received, and that council authorize the mayor and municipal clerk to execute an easement agreement with Hydro One Networks Inc. over part of mining claim L1439, and finally that an execution by law be brought forward for 3 readings on October 1st, 2024.
Thank you. Welcome back, Jenna McNaughton, Planning Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So through you to council, we did receive this request from Hydro One. They're just looking at upgrading some of their infrastructure in that Ricks Trail area, which is adjacent to the ball fields near the community complex. So they're looking at doing 120 meters of underground infrastructure where they would be eliminating some of their overhead and adding a pad mounted transformer. So we'd be looking at entering into one of their standard agreements. There is some consideration on that end, which I believe was 1,250 just to establish the easement. I did consult with the Director of Community Services, so this won't affect any of the green spaces once the work is done. And Hydro One has agreed to give us a heads up to make sure that we can inform our staff and the community when this project is being conducted, so that it doesn't interfere with any of most of the students walking through that trail. And I believe we have that disc golf course there as well, so.
Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Owen?
Yeah, through you, your worship. They're gonna put a transformer on a platform down there, but is that not a floodplain? Is that not an area that floods?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the section that they're actually putting the transformer on is more up the hill, closer to the residents, but it is on the town land.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Do I need the motion read again? No? All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 6.4, Kirkland Lake Airport Area Navigation Cyclic Review, sorry. Can I have a mover? Councillor Dykens, seconded by Councillor Ranger.
Moved by Counselor Dolly Dyken, seconded by Counselor Janice Ranger. Be it resolved that report number 2024 CAO 9 entitled Kirkland Lake Airport Area Navigations Cyclic Review be received. And find that the sum of $20,570 plus HST be transferred from the working capital reserve to the Public Works 2024 operating budget for the cost incurred for the retaining of Octant Aviation to undertake the area navigation cyclic review at the Kirkland Lake Airport.
Thank you. This will be presented by CAO Smith. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, to members of the council. To comply with Transport Canada's regulations, renewal of departure and instrument approach procedures must take place every 5 years at Kirkland Lake Airport. This work begins usually in August, and then 8 months later, the results are published in Canada Air Pilot. The 2019 agreement was set to expire at the end of August 2024 of this year. To remain regulatory compliant, I gave the Director of Public Works the delegated authority to sign a new contract with Octant Aviation. The cost of this work by Octant Aviation is $20,570. As of today, this has been fully paid. However, this amount was not included in the 2024 budget. This was an oversight. The renewal for 2029 had been placed in the town's agreement and contract tracker developed by the municipal clerk. This will ensure that the renewal will not be missed with inclusion in the 2029 budget. I welcome any questions that council may have.
Any questions, comments? None noted. Do I need the motion reread? No. All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Thank you, sir. Item number 7, considerations of notice of motion. What? Oh, sorry. Pardon me?
We missed.
AMO. Oh, I skipped. Sorry, item 6.5, AMO renewed administration of the Canada Community Building Fund 2024 to 2034. Can I have a mover? Councillor Ranger, seconded. Councillor Owen.
Moved by Counselor Janice Ranger, seconded by Counselor Rick Owen. Be resolved that report number 2024 Corp 37 entitled AMO renewed administration of the Canada Community Building Fund 2024 to 2034 be received, and that the mayor and municipal clerk be authorized to execute a municipal funding agreement and any related amendments proposed in favor of the town without detrimental financial impact with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, for the renewal of the administration of the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF. And finally, that an execution bylaw be brought forward for 3 readings on October 1st, 2024.
Thank you. We'll welcome Mr. Lloyd Crocker, treasurer. Thank you. Welcome back.
Madam Mayor, this is a housekeeping type of report. This is funding. We talked about asset management. This is one of those funding sources that we rely on to help us with our management of the asset replacement costs. It used to be called gas tax for those who have been around a bit longer. It's now CCBF. This agreement allows us to enter, the AMO actually administers the program on behalf of it's the federal government. So we're just getting permission here tonight to sign into that agreement. You'll see in the report the expected numbers of, that they've told us are coming our way. Just a quick note that could change anytime, the whole point of doing asset management plans and reporting, FIR reporting and everything else is they're using that information to make these decisions. But how many dollars we're getting, but this agreement is just to recognize that the AMO is administering the program and we have to sign into it officially.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Owen?
Yes, sir, your worship. Is there a reason it's trending down in terms of funding that we're receiving?
Madam Mayor, I don't know. To be blunt, I don't they actually decreased that 487 that you see there now is a decrease from what we got 2 years ago. We're not really, I think it is a mix of what I was just saying. They look at our FIR, our financial information return. They look at the asset management plans that have already been filed. And they look at their pool. So, higher levels of government are notorious for leaving things the way they are, and then, all the agencies below them have to divide up that pool. And sometimes, so a growth community
maybe they get a bigger allocation because they're growing and we weren't at that time. I'm not, I don't technically know how they come to the number, but they put an awful lot of emphasis on the stuff we're reporting to them, so.
Thank you for that. Councillor Shabba?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, reading this, I think there's something about the municipal population. That might be a factor that they use to draw that down. That's the second to last paragraph. It's calculated every 5 years using census data to reflect population changes. That'll be one of the reasons why, you see a downward trend.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's definitely part of it, I only deal with, what we hear kind of through the grapevine, that's their official commentary. I know they take put some weight on not just community size, but asset, I'll call it asset size, right? And growth communities are clearly looking to spend a lot more than on that growth, which is the priority for many levels of government right now. So we're probably seeing that as part of the reflection as part of that.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Do I need the motion reread? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Thank you, sir. Now moving on. Considerations of notice of motions. There were not, okay. Councillor Shabba, you wish to speak to?
Yes, I wish to speak to this. I'd like to defer this motion, there's a motion to our next meeting. Just to give me time to sit down with the CEO to come up with a acceptable construct of the motion.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Item number 8, introduction, reading and consideration of, sorry.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Dykens, I'm rushing through at this point.
I know, sorry to delay.
No.
To you, Madam Mayor, so I have a notice of motion, does that go here or does that go later?
No, that goes at the later part.
Perfect, yeah.
Okay. Item number 8, introduction, reading and considerations of bylaws. Bylaw number 24-0072. May I have a mover? Councillor Dykens, seconded by Councillor Shabba.
Moved by Councillor Dolly Dyken, seconded by Councillor Lad Chaba. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and municipal clerk, and a seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 2472, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with EXP Services Inc. for Connecting Links 2024-2025 design project management administration as identified in 6/11/24 RFP.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? None noted. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimous. Item number 9, questions from council to staff. There were 2 this meeting. Item 9.1, Councillor Owens' request for status of notice of motion, which it's been so long that we've done this, you'll have to forgive me.
Just have to repeat it and the floor to question.
Okay, so, request for status of notice of motion regarding investigate installation of water meters on new construction builds in the town of Kirkland Lake, passed on March 5th, 2024. I'll have Councillor Owens speak to this question.
Where are we at?
Okay.
If you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, I can address 9.1, 9.2 collectively, as they came under the same.
Yeah.
Motion, council. So over the past several months, there have been some staffing challenges in the Public Works Department. This, along with attention needed to address the flood and also the attention needed to address the application to the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund, necessitated prioritizing projects and initiatives. Items that were currently put aside are now being reviewed with the intention of having the regulation education on lawn monitoring report presented to council during the first quarter of 2025, and with the water metering report presented soon after. So really had to prioritize projects in the past few months. And again, some items were put aside and we're now back in the mix. And so we'll have the lawn monitoring report in the first quarter of next year.
Thank you for that. Okay, thank you. So item number 10, notices of motion. Do I step on the chair?
You should, but.
So I do have one for next, meeting for myself regarding accessible playground equipment. And I would also like to add this evening, support of multicultural and settlement services within the town of Kirkland. Yeah.
And
Yes.
We got it. Is there any other notices or motions from the table? Counselor Shabba?
Just for the clerk, do I just add I already indicated, I wanted next meeting, do I officially add it or that's?
Nope, it's already been deferred. You're good. Thank you. Counselor Dykens?
I have a notice of motion for the next meeting, October 1st, for organizational review of fire services.
Okay, Counselor Owen?
Notice a motion, for, a report on, traffic calming signs.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Traffic what?
Okay,
Calming
sorry.
signs.
There's another, there's a motion on that for traffic calming signs.
Is
Does
it-
doesn't have a question.
So do you have something different than what was, yeah? Or are you requesting an update?
Oh, I guess I'm requesting an update
Okay,
on the status of the,
Put it on the agenda.
okay, thank you.
okay.
I wasn't quite,
That's okay.
it's been a while and I couldn't remember.
Yep,
Sorry.
no,
Thank you.
or it's a learning curve, as Counselor Ranger had said earlier today. So anything further from members of council regarding notice of motion? We're all good, okay, thank you. Item number 11, councilors' reports. Anything from members of council over the last couple of weeks to report? Okay. Here we go. As per earlier discussions this evening, I want to congratulate all the volunteers. But tonight, especially the board members of the Oaks Project Heritage Arts Tourism Group, Anne Black, Kim Shawnsby, Martha McSherry, and Bev Chesley Rumble are shining examples of the power of community. They join the ranks of people like Jose Merrick, among others, whose hard work and dedication saw the creation of the Northeastern Recovery Center. It was volunteers that brought us Hockey Heritage North. The volunteers developed the dog park. Volunteers organized a community-wide cleanup day this year, and volunteers like the beautification committee that are constantly making Kirkland Lake better. Too often, people expect government to be all things to all people, but the longer I am part of this system, and I think I've said it from the chair before, it is volunteers within the community who truly get things done and make Kirkland Lake the right environment for all of us. So I truly thank all the people that put in the effort to make positive changes in our community, and thank you to those in the audience. For my part, in the last 2 weeks, I've chaired meetings for Temiskaming Health Unit and the PHU-THU Merger Working Group, held meetings with business owners to seek their input on upcoming meetings with ministers, received multiple phone calls and meetings with members of the public regarding items such as laneways and sidewalk maintenance, tax arrears, as well as larger systematic issues as experienced by community members in social housing. I've traveled to Timmins to meet with shareholders from across the region, as well as ministers George Prairie and Minister Kevin Holland regarding the wood chip surplus currently being experienced across the forestry sector. And I've attended the Drago Zoom meeting regarding the emergency. Also meetings for Planet Youth and the Community Safety and Wellbeing Action Plan Working Group. And finally, today, members of council and others had a sneak peek at the Children's Department refresh. And I have to say, I was blown away with the results. I cannot wait for the official opening celebrations and the ability to share it with the public. They will be having a soft opening coming soon. So please, member of the public, stay posted for that. And then I do want to address the public outcry on social media. I hope people that took the time to comment and share those posts also took the time to actively be part of the solution by reaching out to the ministry responsible for services. Only they can make the policy changes needed to address the current crisis. I spent this summer really questioning this system that I myself am part of. And I've come to the conclusion that every employee among these systems is doing what they can within the confines of their roles. The people in the systems care. They care so much and they want to address the needs of our society. But I fully believe that every single person in this society has a responsibility to each other to do their part to make positive change. It's not enough to point a finger and scream that there's a problem. We know there's a problem. And we can't all hope that somebody else comes along to fix it. It will take more action and less finger pointing to make these changes. I hope people will look at themselves and what they can personally do to either help or hinder the process. And just know making the smallest attempt to make things better, because if we're all doing that, eventually things will get better for all of us. So thank you for letting my TED talk. Can I have the mover to accept? Councillor Ranger, seconded by Councillor Owen.
Moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Rick Owen, be it resolved that the verbal updates from members of the council be received.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted, item carried unanimous. Item number 12, additional information. 12.1 proclamation National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, September 30th, 2024. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation. And whereas recommendation number 80 of the TRC called upon the federal government in collaboration with the Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday, a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas in 2021, the federal government declared September 30th as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, and established this date as a statutory holiday. And whereas September 30th has been reclaimed by survivors as a day to listen to the stories of those affected by the residential school system, to celebrate the inherent value of Indigenous peoples and their cultures, and to reflect on the ways in which our society must improve to better uplift and respect Indigenous peoples living in Canada. And whereas the town of Kirkland Lake supports taking concrete action towards reconciliation and believes that acknowledging National Day for Truth and Reconciliation as a municipal statutory holiday is an important step in supporting both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people's ability to engage with and understand the value of Indigenous history, culture, and tradition. Now, therefore, I, Stacey White, Mayor of the town of Kirkland Lake, do now proclaim September 30th, 2024 as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in the town of Kirkland Lake. May I have a mover? Councillor Ranger, and a seconder, Councillor Owen.
Moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Rick Owen, be it resolved that council sanction the proclamation for National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, September 30th, 2024 in the town of Kirkland Lake.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. There is no closed session this evening, and therefore there are no matters of closed session this evening. Item number 15, confirmation bylaw. Can I have a mover, Councillor Jenkins? And seconded by Councillor Owens.
Moved by Councillor Dolly Dyken, seconded by Councillor Casey Owens, be it resolved that the following bylaw be read, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor, municipal clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 2473, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held Tuesday, September 17th, 2024.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item number 16 is adjournment. May I have a mover? Councillor Dykens. We don't need to talk right now.
Be it resolved of this regular meeting to now adjourn at 7:18 PM.
All in favor?
Oh.
Thank you very much, everyone.